Now that the beta for Monster Hunter Wilds is over, I thought I'd give my impressions so far, having played both the PS5 and PC version. Now, I'm not a sugarcoater, so a lot of my criticisms will be sharp, but hopefully fair. So before we begin, leave a like and comment your thoughts on the beta below. Now, I do have to state that it is a beta. It is not the finished product. With that said, both console and PC are rough right now. PC in particular is, you can argue, unacceptable for anyone without a 40 series card and likely a high-end CPU as well. Many people with lower end cards, even 3060s, are basically playing a game made by Picasso even on low settings, fighting blobs of monster and NPCs from the PS1 era. It's really weird, and many of them are not even able to get to 60 FPS without frame generation. And as far as consoles go, you have 30 FPS for the resolution mode on PS5 and unsteady FPS with performance mode that can't even reach 60. And the resolution of that gets destroyed. It's a blurry mess. And this is a 2025 game, not a 2017 game. For me personally, I ran the game at 120 FPS, 1440p, and smooth as butter on PC aside from a few pop-ins. So my experience is not impacted. But when a developer is not doing a good job on the lower end, gamers should call it out. So hopefully they hear the players' feedback and make it runnable for most cards by the time of release. They have been pushing for a more casual audience recently, but if casuals can't even run the game decently, that is a big problem. This game is expected to be the biggest Capcom game ever, so they cannot have this kind of performance at launch. The blowback will be immense. So hopefully there is going to be a second beta or demo with a better build, which supposedly they had one apparently, but why didn't they just put that out instead of this crap? But if all else fails, they should delay the game to cook it more if that's what it takes. So just getting the elephant out of the room, performance not good for many users. But if you can run it, it does look good, very impressive. Now, Monster Hunter is a series that constantly changes from game to game, and Wilds is no exception. The question is whether some of these changes and additions are good or bad compared to previous games. So let's get into it. There were 4 monsters in the beta: Chatakabra, Dashagama, I think it's called, Balahara, and Ray Dao. Claydao in particular, the apex monster of the region, was fantastic. Visually outstanding, great theme song, the fight itself was done well, and the sound effects, man, the sound effects. Great monster. The other 3 are typical early game monsters, so I won't put too much critique on them, but personally, they kind of lack charm and visual aesthetic compared to any other Monster Hunter game. Definitely more diverse cast and world since they're not just all wyverns, and visually the scales and the fur are done superbly, graphically, but just as a design, none of these are my new favorite monsters. Next, we have weapons. I haven't played a lot of them, maybe about 4 or 5. Overall, my feelings on weapons are this. They feel like they have post-expansion master rank movesets in a base game. And it's going to be too subjective to say what I don't like and like about each new weapon, but every new weapon so far has still been fun overall. At least the weapons that I like. But I will say weapons do kind of lack impact right now compared to World. It almost feels like Rise, where they just don't have enough oomph for a lot of their hits, so hopefully they can improve that. And lastly, we can have 2 new weapons now that can only be swapped via the bird, but due to the complexity of each new weapon now, I think new players will barely use this because it's hard enough to learn one weapon, right? But it is going to be nice to have 2 elemental weapons on hand for certain weapons, and it is worth noting that weapons will have armor-like skills in the game, so I wonder how that's going to play out in the final game, and well, hopefully we don't end up with just Wex 3 on every build. But the new big feature for Wilds is the focused system. Attacking monsters over time will produce wounds, kind of acting like Tenderized system in Iceborne, except you don't need the clutch law to apply it, you just attack, which is nice. And each weapon has a special attack via L2 that hits the wound and does a lot of damage, but that closes the wound and you have to reopen them again. Overall, I think the system is cool, but kind of ruins a lot of what Monster Hunter has been built on for the past 2 decades, which is positioning, timing, and monster knowledge of where they are in relation to your weapon. The whole wound system is fine. It's the aiming that I have a little bit of issue with. as you now have great swords that can do TCS in basically any direction, moving mid-animation so long as you hold the focus mode button. Many people, especially casuals, will think this is awesome since you're not going to miss as much anymore, but it undeniably abandons the idea of positioning and timing your attacks to hit a monster. Even Bow now has a move that completely removes the need for aiming with homing missiles. So yeah, I'm not saying it's bad or not fun, cause yeah, I don't want to miss TCS all the time. But at the same time, the days of classic Monster Hunter are pretty much long gone. Aside from that, there's also the new clash and offset attacks that if you time an attack when a monster attacks, you will clash and shrug off the monster while doing damage. It's pretty cool, but only usable with certain weapons. Weapons that are more evasive, like dual blades or bow and such, don't get this feature at all, which is a little weird, but I guess it helps with balance since those evasive weapons tend to get iframe stuff, and it'd be weird if Greatsword got iframes, so I guess this is their solution for that. And UI wise, initially I thought I was going to hate the squiggly health bar, but in the moment of action, you barely even noticed it, so it wasn't as big of a deal as I thought it was going to be. Although an option to just have a straight green bar would be nice. Character creation is back and much better than previous games in terms of features and control, so A+ there. And I've seen some wacky creations like Woody from Toy Story and such, so yeah, I think most people are going to like the customization. However, paid character vouchers are still in, so boo! But we now have genderless armors, which I've always wanted. I hate being stuck with certain armors just because you picked a dude or a girl, so big positive there. But apparently, if you block with a shield, your character's face becomes hideous. But hey, if you're a Coomer, now you can just put a helmet over that body type B face to prevent that, right? Now, we'll talk about the story aspect and NPCs. I don't know if this is the very beginning of the game, because you're kind of dumped into a lot of people you don't know, but overall, I think the character and story are much better than World in the little snippet we got. It's got a darker, more serious tone of monsters actually causing havoc in human villages, characters are expressing emotions during their scenes, and if you don't care about that, you can just skip most dialogue scenes now, or at least speed them up, and the handler in this game is much less annoying than the handler in Worlds. Multiplayer and hunts in general are fast. We have crossplay now to play across platforms, which is really cool and great for the future multiplayer streams we'll have here. You have 100-person lobbies now, and whenever you post a quest, it'll automatically be added to the lobby for anyone to join, which is pretty cool. And if you want to go solo, you just set the player count to 1 in the settings to do that. And we have the return of Worlds quest rewards, so deco farming is back in, which I like. It's basically investigations with random quest difficulties and random rewards from the get-go. It's not some endgame feature, it's just right from the start. But hopefully this time, attack jewels aren't as rare, right? And overall, the whole quest and lobby system, good. And since everything's within the map, you don't have to go back and forth to the village anymore, since you're permanently outside in an expedition mode essentially per map. The map system for the game is also freaking crazy. The things like Google Maps or Earth, fully 3D, fully rotatable, you can see everything on the map from rocks to rare spawns and materials or gatherables, the seasons, timing, and what monsters are currently out. By far, it is the best map UI of any game in history that I played. And you can now set up temp camps throughout the map, although I wish we could just set up a tent anywhere instead of set locations, so it's still limited there. But if you see a monster, you can just simply pin it and then go to it on your new secret, the bird, dinosaur, raptor thing. Basically exactly like the Palamute in Rise, but this time it can auto take you anywhere without you pressing any buttons. So you just hit up and then your hands are free until you get to your location. So literally like a Tesla, dude. And like Teslas, it's got navigation problems as well.
That's ridiculous.
Not responding when you hit the button sometimes, or going in weird directions away from the planned route, or just running into a wall and continue running. It's a little bit wonky there, but it certainly helps getting you across the map faster. So there's basically no downtime in hunts in Wilds. Now, we have arrived to my biggest negative for the game, which won't change unfortunately, but I'll state it anyways. It's partly aesthetic, but mostly the map and season junk. When this game isn't shoving sand in my eyes and mouth and butt crack, obscuring my view with fog and dust, it actually is really good looking. Like the star sky at night looks amazing, and in this section here during the day feels like it's wild. It feels like an evolution to World's map and ecosystem, like a huge map ready to be explored. But that's not the case. 80% of the time, due to the whole season junk that blows dust storms everywhere, that darkens the sky and ruins visibility, the game just becomes ugly and hard to see when this happens. I can't see and appreciate how big the scope of the map is if there's a sandstorm 3 feet from me constantly. Now I have heard that the seasons are overtuned in terms of how long they last between cycling to the next for the beta, but even still, I don't like the gimmick. The map is also really, really boring in my opinion. It's mostly flat and mostly just rocks and sand. Yes, it's a desert, but just landmark wise, I can't recognize any area. Nothing is memorable. The Wildspire Waste and World by comparison had visual clarity. You had distinct zones that you can remember, like, okay, this spot's where the mud part's at, this one's where the spire and the sand traps were, this is underground where Diablos was at, this section over here is the foresty type area, etc. This map, everything looks the same. The only notable landmarks are the big mountain thing in the background, and then Ray Dow's lair, which is actually really cool, with the lightning on the ground and stuff. But other than that, it's a big stinking desert. When I thought Wilds was gonna go open world initially, I was super excited for like a continuous adventure kind of deal. But this isn't open world, it's just an oversized sand pit at a playground. So yeah, I don't like the map nor the weather system. Hopefully the other maps aren't as bad visually and weather-wise, even though we know there's going to be torrential rain in the forest map and likely snowstorms that obscure your view in the snow map if there is one. I know the whole season thing is story related, it's probably monster related, so we likely won't be able to turn the weather cycles off, but hopefully they have an option to reduce it. Anyways, those are my impressions for the game. I had fun with my time in the beta despite any complaints here. Hopefully they improve performance so everyone can play normally. The game will release in 2025 at the end of February, which I'm still really excited for. But what do you guys think of the beta? What are your positives and negatives? Were you even able to run it? And what improvements would you make, if any, but aside of performance obviously, between now and release? But yeah, I have weapon guides for bow and longsword that are useless now until release, but hopefully we get a second beta or demo before launch, and I'll have true weapon guides and builds as usual on my channel for the official release. So until then, subscribe for more Wilds epicness. Oh, he's got more? Uh-oh. Oh, this sounds pretty cool.